Some may argue that spring starts when the groundhog says so, but if you ask me, it's when I can finally break up with my parka and I find myself staring at a mess of a closet asking, now what? After a few months of re-wearing the same sweat set over and over, refreshing your wardrobe can feel overwhelming. I mean, what trends are worth investing in? Where are the cool girls shopping without having to spend their rent money? Well, good news, girls. I've got you covered. In this special segment presented by Nordstrom and ACAST Creative, I'll share some easy, stress free tips for building a spring wardrobe. Think of it like a wardrobe fit for your highest self. Nordstrom is the ultimate cool girl hack because they make shopping effortless and offer the best styles of the year for under $100. Stay tuned for ultra convenient shopping tips to update your spring wardrobe effortlessly.
Why does making friends as an adult feel so
What
hard?
should I wear on a first
What the
date?
hell is a formal?
But that
Why
hookup
is
was
buying my
not
first
good.
home so
What do I want my
frustrating?
life to look like in 5 years?
We want to know too.
Since 2012, the Every Girl has been an online destination to help women around the world achieve the life of their dreams. Now, we're excited to bring you the same inspiring content with the Every Girl podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Every Girl podcast. We have an amazing show for you today. I am joined by the one, the only Rebecca Minkoff. She needs little introduction because you have probably seen her name in any department store, but Rebecca Minkoff is a legendary fashion designer, and she's also the founder of the Female Founder Collective. This conversation, you guys, it's inspiring, informative, entertaining. Rebecca freaking delivers. We get the inside scoop on her entire career, what she's learned about success, and she really has phenomenal advice about networking and how to stand out in a competitive industry. Rebecca also has a very interesting story and background that a lot of people don't know. We talk about everything from how she was working the front lines after 9/11 to how Laguna Beach and the hills affected her career. And of course, I got to ask about her time on Real Housewives of New York. She shares some really fascinating behind the scenes that I have not heard before, even as a major Bravo fan. She gives a lot of her honest thoughts after that crazy reunion. If you know, you know. And she also shares where she currently stands with the other housewives. Rebecca blew me away with how honest, incredibly fascinating, and how just like so cool she was. I love talking to her, and you will love this convo. Welcome, Rebecca Minkoff, to the Every Girl podcast. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the Every Girl podcast. I am such a fan of yours, so I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm always interested in how successful people become who they are. Would you pinpoint anything from your childhood that led you to become the successful woman that you are?
I think the single most notable aspect of my childhood was everything that I wanted. The answer was no, for the most part. And how was I going to earn it or work for it? We had a green little accounting ledger in the kitchen and chores were counted and, money earned. And if you wanted something, that's how you were going to get it. And I think as much as that is so annoying and frustrating as a little kid, it really teaches you this skill set of like, I can figure it out. I can just do it. And I think you need that mentality as an entrepreneur.
It sounds like your parents instilled in you like entrepreneurship from a very young age.
Yeah, I don't think they thought to themselves, we want our kid to be an entrepreneur. I think they very much said, we want them to know how to figure stuff out. And the way that we can do that is by ensuring that we don't just buy them everything they want. Not that they could have. It's not like we were a very wealthy family growing up, but they still wanted that mentality.
That must have instilled a lot of confidence in you to feel that even from a young age, whoa, if I want something, I can be in control of getting it.
Yeah, I don't think looking back, I had any form of confidence in most any part of my life, except for this like, I want to make jewelry. I'm going to go to the jewelry store and I'm going to do this. And I want to make puffy paint sweatshirts or I want to make my bat mitzvah dress. So there was a confidence in like, I didn't doubt myself of being able to make the things or learn. But I at the time, it doesn't feel like confidence. It feels like this like blind creativity. if that makes sense.
And what age were you when you started, "Oh, I wanna make my own jewelry, I wanna make my own puffy sweatshirts"?
So my mom would sell some items at the flea market, and so I was probably as young as 6 when I was like, "I wanna go with you to the flea market and sell some
Wow.
stuff." So she let me set up a little card table there, and that's where I could set up, and I didn't sell anything, but it was still really fun all week to, like, get all ready for it and be stressed out about what I was gonna make and then show up there.
And you probably had that exposure of like, "Oh, I can create something and then bring it to other people, like share what I create with others," which is a very unique experience that six-year-olds don't get to have often.
It's not what they get to yeah, I don't know many six-year-olds who get to do that with their parents, but it was really fun and also really disappointing, and I think to learn both of those early on, like rejection, no one wanted my puffy paint sweatshirts. I couldn't figure out why. In hindsight, I know why, but I think it's also good to learn that early on because it does make you stronger.
It's hard for that rejection to not hurt as an adult. How, when you were that young, when people didn't wanna buy your sweatshirts, did you not think, "Ugh, this is an awful feeling, I'm not cut out for this," that you were able to face rejection and keep doing it anyway?
I think back then there's like a very simple joy in the creation of it, and that's what feels good. And it
Mm.
feels even better if someone recognizes it and wants it. But I think that because my parents were cheering me on between that and like the joy of making these things and the fun of bringing it to market and planning that, it was almost like I was playing Office, which I loved playing too. So I think that overrode any rejection I felt.
That you just loved the process of it. I think that's a really important lesson that a lot of people are so outcome driven that they forget how important it is to love what you're doing and enjoy the process of doing it.
You have to enjoy the process, like, that's why you started, and during all this bad stuff that's gonna happen when you have your own business or you're starting your career, like, if you don't love the process, I don't know what you're holding on to.
What else is there, right? I loved learning about your story, reading your book. Can you take our audience back to kind of the beginning of your career, how you knew you wanted to be in fashion, and also how you even knew to start your own brand? Because a lot of people have that dream, but then they have no idea how to execute. And I'm very impressed at how you were able to execute as soon as you kind of like wanted to have this brand.
So, I've been sewing now by this point since I was 8. It was a focus during my high school years in the costume department of my performing arts high school. I was in the costume department for, 2 to 3 hours per day. So, when I graduated from high school, I felt very confident in my ability to construct a garment out of my imagination, and I had a feeling that knew I wanted to pursue design or dance because I was doing both, and I went to New York because of a paid internship and was able to work for a designer and also find some time to dance on the side, and the CEO really said to me, "You gotta pick one or the other. You can't have both. These are 2 crafts that you have to be dedicated to," and she's not wrong. And I'll never forget, I was leaving the place where I was taking these dance classes was at Alvin Ailey. It's this incredible dance company. It's been around for almost 100 years. And I see Barishnikov, like, walking up the hill, and I'm walking down the hill. And I was like, "If I can't be that of dance or something close to it, I don't wanna do it," and I had to take stock of, like, I'm not good enough, and I don't know if I love dance enough that when my career is over in 10 years, I want the options that are available to many dancers. Maybe it's gonna be something I go back to when I'm retired, which I still plan on doing.
Oh,
Um,
oh, I can't wait for your revival.
you'll see an old knobby lady, like, doing these, dances.
And I'm
Um
sure you'll be better than I am now.
And so I said, "Okay, fashion it is," and I had a love for it, so it wasn't like I picked my second choice, I really loved it, and I just said, "Okay, if I'm gonna work this hard, I don't want it to be for somebody else," and so I began on the side kind of making my own things and seeing what I could do to build myself up in that space.
How did you get your foot in the door once you did get to New York?
So I had an internship with a designer. So right away I was kind of immersed and everyone can think that sounds really sexy. I was in the shipping department, I was picking up the CEO's kit, I was reorganizing stock shelves. I was cutting swatches till I had like bleeding blisters. I was making phone calls and
So it's
um
very Devil Wears Prada, like, that is how it actually is.
My experience was the work was Devil Wears Prada, but the people were really, really, really great and very like, oh, you're an intern here. You should learn all facets of the business. You should work in all these departments. So thank God I wasn't with mean girls at that moment as a
Oh,
vulnerable
God.
18-year-old. And I really just at the time was trying to just show the CEO, like, I'm going to work my butt off for you so you can give me more opportunities. I just knew that was the way to get seen and noticed. About 6 months in, I said, I'd like you to hire me. I feel like I deserve a role here. And so that's when she hired me. And I got to really just begin to say, okay, now I work here. I'm her assistant. And then I'd be like, can I work on design stuff? Like when I'm done with my work for the designer. And so I sort of inched my way into that area of the business. They designed men's shirts for women, like high-end men's shirts for women. So it's not like you had that much creativity. You were picking like buttons, thread, and different fabrics for the shirts. But the silhouettes were never changing. But it still gave me a lot of knowledge of like how to make a line sheet, how to make, a spec sheet. It was exciting, even though it was the most mundane work sometimes.
I think it's such good career advice to like learn on someone else's dime. I know is what they say, where you can learn so much from working for someone else that's doing something similar to what you want to do. So
Yeah.
you had so much time to have experience learning what having a fashion design label really looks like, which I think is priceless, even though I know that you were like grinding extremely hard, but that it was this priceless experience of being able to learn before you went out and started your own thing.
100%. And I still think I could have learned a lot more on someone else's dime, you know? I was a know-it-all and I was like, "I'm ready. I'm 21." And like I made a lot of mistakes, especially in the financial area of things that would have been nice to spend someone else's money for that.
So you were 21 when you decided, "Okay, I'm ready to go out and launch my own label."
I just launched my own label while working there. I had my first fashion show on September 10th, 2001. After 9/11, my t-shirt taking off because I made this I Love New York shirt. This actress wore it on Jay Leno after 9/11. I was inundated with orders for that shirt. And my boss at the time could tell that my focus was on the momentum that that was having. And so she was like, go do it. Either you're all in here or you're all in on you. And I know the answer, like, go. And I was like, no, 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 it's okay. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm good. Like, let's stay here and we'll juggle both. And she was like, no, go. And that was a really, really scary and hard moment. You're in New York City. You're 21 years old. You make no money. But you have to pay rent, and these t-shirts are not paying for the rent. And it's kind of like, okay, I guess here we go. Cross your fingers, everybody. We're diving into this. So it's the kick that I needed. But again, I could have used like 2, 3 more years working for
Yeah.
another designer.
It's kind of like one of those, like, universe has your back kind of things where it sounds like it needed to happen even though it was so risky, but that was the right timing in order to propel you into the brand that you have now and the career that you have now. I know a lot of people feel like, "I'm not ready. I have to wait to quit my job and start my business until I feel totally ready." And in reality, whoever feels ready for it, and sometimes it's almost like a blessing in disguise when we are almost like forced and like propelled into what we actually want to be doing.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable because a lot
Yeah,
of these things that happen to you, you have to go with that momentum. And sometimes it's extraordinarily uncomfortable. And guess what? 20 years later, it still is in different facets. And so get used to that. Like we can't be bubble wrapped forever. I know a lot of this generation has been bubble wrapped, but you got to rip it off and like experience that.
that's right. I would love for you to take us back to the t-shirt. I also was very surprised. Like, I did not know before reading your book how much 9/11 was a part of your story. So, can you tell our audience who may not be familiar about the t-shirt, how that came to be? And I would also love to hear about your story, like being in New York for 9/11 and like how that impacted your business.
So the t-shirt idea came about. I had a very small 5-piece collection. I can tell you exactly what it is because I just found all the pictures from the photo shoot. We're going to be sharing this
Oh
whole
my
year. We're
God,
going to
no
be
way.
sharing all the like nostalgia moments. I went on this work trip in the Caribbean and I liked how the shirts were cut up and had the beads dangling from them. I was like, I want it to be a New York shirt. So I got home, went down to Canal and Green, bought a shirt, cut it up at an angle and tied the beads up. And I think that at that time I went to M&J Trimmings and I put these red rhinestones were in, everybody. I put these rhinestones on the heart and I just thought it was really cute. And my sister-in-law wanted one. So I made her one. And again, friends were my customers. And then my sister-in-law wore it to dinner with Jen Elfman, who was on a very huge TV show called Dharma and Greg. And she wanted one. And I sent it to her on September 9th, 2001. And then obviously 9/11 happened. And when it happened, I, believe it or not, was at a cotton seminar. I had just had my first runway show the night before. My parents flew in for it. So you're coming off of this oh my God, I've made it. Meanwhile, we haven't made shit, okay? We just had a show for our friends and family, but it felt like I was part of Fashion Week. You wake up, I'm in a cotton seminar learning about the qualities of cotton. This woman comes in and she's like, there's been a plane that's just hit the World Trade Center. And I was like, what the? We switched to the news and we're all just like, what the hell? And then immediately the building is evacuated and you're on the streets walking. And we were high up, so you couldn't see smoke or anything yet. And you're just in a daze of what is happening? Or is America being attacked? My parents' cell phone service was extraordinarily spotty. And I think I called them from a payphone because they were on their way to the airport. So right away I was like, was that their plane? Whose plane was it? And they said, no, we rerouted. We're going to come pick you up. We're going to drive to Florida. You're coming with us. And I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. And so they left town. I walked all the way down to where my apartment was on Spring Street. And there you could see the smoke. And right away I thought I got to do something. And so I had already been volunteering at this nonprofits organization and we were able to mobilize very quickly and get down there before all the red tape came in and only organizations that had the right credentials could go down there. But we were down there setting up in one of the high schools, we were setting up triage where the firefighters and recovery workers could sleep, where they could eat, where they could wash themselves off with a washcloth. We were just trying to serve them so that they could go back into. And it was gray and it was dark at noon every day. You couldn't see more than a couple of feet in front of you. And it felt like the apocalypse. And then I would leave smoke filled and disgusting, go home, shower, do it again the next day. And I think for a lot of people, work stopped. Obviously, I'm really bummed. All this momentum that I thought I had for my show is now gone. But I was also that seemed irrelevant right away. What was most important was what was happening down there. So I did that for about 2 weeks. I was either there or volunteering out front of one of the hospitals. And then my boss that was kind of around the time where she was like, you can either come back here or you can go do your thing and you know what you're doing. So it went from 9/11 to being fired to then, okay, I guess I'm going to start my own thing.
This is the craziest few-month period of anyone's life I've ever heard. Obviously, the whole city and a lot of the country obviously had shut down. People were not even going into their offices. Do you think that gave both you and the company that you were working for at the time, it gave that opportunity to be what's actually working? What do we want the next step to be?
I think that the company was like, all right, how do we continue to operate and run? For most businesses, sales were crashing at that time because there was so much uncertainty of what was going on. So they were experiencing their own kind of struggles. And then I was going through my own, something horrible just happened. This shirt is working. I'm donating the proceeds to, at that point, I think it was the Red Cross. And it's paying for me to eat ramen. And then I'm fired. Okay, let me just go with it. It was kind of just you're not really being strategic at all, to be honest.
Yeah. It's kind of almost like a cliche at this point where everybody knows where they were when they heard 9/11 happened. And I really haven't heard the story from anyone who was as integrated in it as you were, from being in New York City to actually going there and helping out on the front lines. And that's so incredible. And it's also so interesting to see how that also was such a catalyst for your business because of how you wanted to help, because of the New York shirt. So to give our audience some context, we have some listeners in their 20s, and so they probably don't know of the time. The
Right.
Slash t-shirt, this was like peak early 2000s fashion. The I Heart New York t-shirt with the slashes and the ties, and it's
Yep.
so
It was
chic.
before Etsy, so, like, you wanted these DIY.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You wanted something that was, like, really felt, like, very special. And so
Yeah.
that was the thing that really propelled your brand, and then from there, you started creating the bag?
I did just apparel from 2001 to 2005, essentially. I was really good at going into debt during that time on a credit card, and I had, like, a little momentum. I was like, "Oh, she's a cute designer," you know? How I paid the bills was I was able to secure work as a commercial stylist, so the pay with that was keeping me afloat. It was like $1,000 a day, and so if you work for 10 days straight, you're like, "Oh my god, I'm rich." And so that was able to sort of fund the business, and when I say fund, this is not like mama's living the luxurious life at all, because you weren't always working, there was nothing guaranteed, so you were like a squirrel and you'd, like, hoard your money, and then I'd go spend it on fabric. So that went on for about 4 years. I was $60,000 in debt. I did not know how I was gonna pay it back because the business was only doing about 250,000 and losing money. So, like, talk about skills I should have learned, math. And I just was like, "Huh, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this." And Jenna came back to me. We're having lunch in LA, and she was like, "Do you make bags? I'm gonna be in a film, and the character's carrying a bag the whole time, and it'll be, like, seen so much, this might help you." And I knew the power of her wearing the shirt 4 years prior. I was like, "Yes, I make bags, Jenna. Of course. When do you need it
I
by?"
haven't, but I will.
Yeah. And so she said, "I need it in 2 weeks." And so I was like, "Great, I'll get it done." And so I knew where to buy leather. I was already making leather jackets by that time, and I had a bag made. FedEx didn't deliver it on time. I was devastated because that was, like, the last credit card swipe of, like, $1,800, and we are maxed out on that credit card, and there is n no more ceiling. I was like, "Cool, cool. This is great. I guess I'll just wear this bag that I now own." And enough women stopped me, and I'll never forget I was outside of there's a really famous store, it's not around anymore, called Henry Bendel on Fifth Avenue, and they showcased, like, big talent or up and coming talent really well, and I was stopped right outside of that store, and someone's like, "Oh my god, I love your bag. Who makes it?" And I thought to myself, "All right, there's something magical here. Let me see if I can, have it strike again." And decided to show it to a friend who was a buyer at a store, and I said, "Do you like it? Give me your feedback. What do you think?" And then she said, "I love it so much, I'm gonna put it in the store, but also I'm gonna introduce you to my friend who is a writer for a really big publication to write about it." So that was kind of this another magical moment where that happened. I wish media could do today what that one article did for me or for anyone, frankly. Like, anytime Daily Candy wrote about anything for its first couple of years, the power of that was just extraordinary.
I've always loved fashion, but as I became more interested in self improvement and making the most of my life, I realized how much our clothes are actually a manifestation tool. Like, our style can literally help us tap into our best self because just think about how much of a boss you feel when you have on a power suit for a presentation at work, or how confident you feel when you go on a first date in an outfit that you feel really good in. Like, we know how fashion is an extremely powerful tool. But this winter, I have gone lazy with my outfits. I am the girl standing in front of her very full closet and thinking, I have nothing to wear. So this spring, I am revamping my wardrobe and I want to take you along with me and help you revamp your wardrobe too. My trick to pulling together great outfits without getting that decision fatigue is to have easy outfit formulas for every occasion. I always start with like a good classic basic that goes with everything, like a structured blazer, a really great pair of jeans, sneakers that go with everything, or like a chic classic kitten heel. You know, the items in your closet that help you look like a cool girl without putting in that much thought. I'd say my style is like a quiet luxury classic vibe on a good day, but I also like to throw in fun pieces that are on trend. Like, I'm obsessed with barrel denim pants right now or charms on all of my jewelry. I cannot have enough charms. So I start with the classic pieces that go with everything, my uniform, if you will. and then add on some trendier pieces before I leave the house. As I'm revamping what I'm calling my best self wardrobe, Nordstrom is truly my best friend. Like, she's that girl for me right now. Nordstrom has all of the best classic pieces, like think Levi's jeans, really cute spring sweaters, floral dresses, and light jackets from brands like Mango. They also have skims, so you can get some great bodysuits or tees. And then they also have all of the best spring trends. Like, I'm drooling over their oversized bohemian blouses, trendy ballet flats, east west purses, 70s inspired denim. My entire wish list is from Nordstrom. And here's the best part, girls, these spring fashion essentials are all under $100. So, whether you're traveling for spring break, you're going to see a headliner at a music festival, or you're perfecting your transitional office OOTD, which is really hard because that AC is brutal. Nordstrom has all of your chic, timeless basics and the trendy pieces you need to help you feel like your best self, all for a crazy affordable price. What I remember of that bag is, like, it was, like, the cool girl bag, like, Lindsay Lohan was wearing it, it was the whole cast of Laguna Beach and The Hills, like, they were the it girls
Yeah.
of the time, and they were all wearing it, so it was, like, this frenzy over this bag. Do you feel like that was because of this media outlet sharing that kind of created the buzz?
That was the buzz for the consumer. And then that store that my friend Ilaria put it in, it was called Satine. They were like the hot boutique in LA where all those girls were shopping. This was pre-influencer, so they were organically going into the store, organically liking the bags, buying them, leaving them. You get the paparazzi shots. They'd be an In Touch Lifestyle, Lucky Magazine, and then it was just this momentum that was just, it was a gift.
What did that feel like for you after you're hustling so much, you're working so freaking hard, and then you see the it girls, Kristen Cavallari, Lindsay Lohan wearing your design? How does that feel? Do you feel like, "I made it?"
You definitely think you made it, even though, you don't know how you're gonna pay for your next meal. But you're just like, "Oh, thank gosh," because I think for a while you can exist on your own steam and your own blind belief. But after like 4 years, you're like, "I gotta get some wind in my sails that's not just me pushing. There needs to be a momentum from outside." And that truly felt like, "Okay, we got the momentum now. It's coming."
It's like the lightning strike that you're waiting for of, like, I'm putting in all this work, and finally it's being received and put out in the world.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, in my case, it took 4 years, and
Mhm.
I think it's not just thinking it's gonna happen overnight, and I still think that sometimes it's gonna happen overnight, and I have to, like, remind myself not to be delusional.
It's really hard because we see on social media, it looks like everyone is having overnight successes when in reality, we're seeing the highlight reel and there is no such thing as overnight success.
There is
It
0.
comes from so much hard work behind the scenes. What I love so much about your career story and what impresses me so much about you, especially you saying earlier how you feel like growing up, you weren't confident in many facets of your life. It was really just like a blind creativity. It is so interesting because you seem to me like the most confident person. Like, you have had to be in the most intimidating rooms with the most intimidating people. You have to pitch yourself, your brand, like over and over and over again. You have to deal with that rejection. How do you feel like you have been able to maintain this confidence over the years?
That's a really good question. You got me thinking here. Sometimes I don't think it's confidence, sometimes it's stupidity. Sometimes it's just faith, blind faith or naivety. Like, who moves to New York at 18 and is like, "I got nowhere to live, I'm gonna go." Like, that's not confident. That's like half crazy, half stupid, and naive. Now there's a confidence of like, look what we've done over the last 20 years. And so there are these different sort of inflection points in your life and the different experiences you have where sometimes it's not confidence, it's just taking the risk. You're so scared and you just do it anyways. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're confident. You're still got the pit in your stomach. Your heart is still beating fast and you're just like, fuck it. And I
Mm.
think a lot of the best things that have happened is when we're like, fuck it. Like, What's the worst that can happen? As long as I've been comfortable with worst case scenarios in my life, if I can stomach the worst case scenario, then I'll take the risk.
It also seems like a common thread throughout your career is, a lot of people are like, I want to make something work. I want to start a business. I want to get a promotion. But it kind of feels like because you were taking risks, you were like, there's no wanting. I have to make this work. Like, I have to do this to pay my bills. There's no option not to. It's like the difference of, a lot of people say, I will try to launch a fashion brand. There's no trying. There's I will launch a fashion brand. So like maybe that's a little bit more of what that common thread is for you of like you took the risks. You put yourself in the situation so that there wasn't a, oh, I hope one day I get this. It was like there's no other option. I'm doing this and I'm going to do whatever I can to make it work.
Yeah. And I think it's also the repeated getting back up. There is every invitation not to. And if I could share with you the horrific things as a business owner or the barriers put in front of you, like you just have to get back up, whether you're confident or not. Just getting back up sometimes secures the fact that you're still around.
And that was one of the things I love so much about your book is all the times that you shared, oh, I wish I did that differently, or like this was a time that wasn't super like roses and butterflies in our business. And I think that's so helpful because so often you hear people just talking about like the skyrocket moment. They're not talking about what actually happens behind the scenes. Rejection is a big topic. It's actually one of the things that we get asked most often from our listeners of like, I'm scared to do this. I'm scared to ask for a promotion. I'm scared to put myself out there on TikTok. I'm scared to ask for a raise. What have you personally learned about rejection and how have you dealt with it?
You need to boil this down to numbers and you need to take the emotion out of it. When I first started out, how many postcards did I need to hand out in Union Square to get one sale? And once I had that magic ratio, it wasn't about no one likes my blouses. Why are they selling? It was no, it takes 500 postcards to sell one fucking blouse. Okay. Or how many blind outreaches to an editor because I didn't have PR, but I like figured out if you looked at the masthead of a magazine, which is where everyone works, usually there was one person's email at the bottom. And then I was like, oh, that's the copy and paste. That's the format. It's first letter, last name, at. Great. I can do this for everyone in that magazine. How many emails am I reaching out to you for? Attaching my lookbook or my images before one reply. Great. 300? Perfect. I'll send 900 emails today so I can get three replies. So it's the same with investors. I'm doing it right now. I'm working on something. I am pitching. I got 2 no's yesterday. Did I go, oh, well, no one wants this. Guess I'm going to give up. I was like, cool. I probably need to get 10 more referrals of investors in order to get the next phase of whatever I'm pitching along the line. And I think when you remove that emotion, you figure out your magic ratio, it's just out there, out there, out there. And I think then you take it less personally. The failure doesn't feel as final. And if you look at some of the best businesses in the world, I think a friend of mine who has a very successful media company, they spoke to 122 different investors before they got one yes. So can you imagine if they'd given up on 79?
Seriously. Yeah. If they were like, oh my God, okay, 80 investors, I must be a failure. Like it just must not be good. Instead of thinking, if it's not 80, it's going to be 81. If it's not 81, it's going to be 85. If it's not 85, it's going to be 100. And then you get to the one that then becomes the success.
Yeah.
I love the advice of looking at it as a numbers game because I think so many people are afraid of just one, of reaching out one time, of submitting the application once, of asking for motion once, instead of looking at it like it is just the numbers game. It's kind of like with dating. Like if you had gone on one date and you're like, well, my person's not out there, bummer. Like I just will give up now. That's not how it works. You have to go on so many dates. And like the more dates you go on, the more people you meet, the chances go up of having someone that connects with you. The same thing applies with anything in your career.
100%. And to think otherwise is being real naive. So like you're afraid to ask for that promotion. Maybe you have to ask for it 3 or 4 times. And each time, if it's a no, like, okay, what do I need to do? What are very clear goals I need to do to hit that? You can't be scared of that. Or you ask for the raise 4 times. We can't give you a raise because blah. The company didn't meet its goals. Great. What can I do to help support the company meeting its goals? Does that mean you have to do more work? Yes, it does. It's not because I suck or I did something wrong. It's just number of times.
That's really good advice. Another through line that I see in your career is I feel like you are a master networker, and there are so many moments in your career, like very pivotal moments, that came because of your network. Can you give some advice on how people, especially in competitive industries, can stand out and make authentic connections?
First of all, when people had business cards, I would come home at night and count them like they were cash. I was like, I met this person and this person. I think that you cannot ever think that you're so low on the totem pole that you're not valuable to somebody else. And I think that you have to simultaneously grow your network, but it's not only up. It's not like I have to network with the CEO of this company. No, you need to network with the manager of that company or the logistics person of that company. Like start lower on the totem pole from where you are and slowly work your way up. I meet too many people who are like, I'm just starting out. Can you mentor me? And I'm like, you hearing my story is not going to help you to get to where you want to go. But I bet if you listen to my design assistant, because that would be your first job, you'll learn so much more about what it takes to get that job. And so I just think we need to take out the like, I'm going to approach the busiest person in the room. And if I can't network with them, then I'm never going to be anything. Like networking is all around you. What was incredible to me was when I started out, the editor in chiefs were holier than thou and untouchable. And unless you were like, I don't know, blessed, you couldn't get to them. And I remember the turning point where all my peers started becoming editor in chiefs because that was who I networked with when they were styling assistants and then editorial assistants. And then that conversation was like, hey, babe, throw me a bone. Want to put me in your magazine? Instead of like, hey, someone I've never spoken to who's busier than God, take a chance on me. I'm a young designer. So you need to have the long game with networking. You need to also always offer something you can do. It is not a one-way street. Even if you don't think there's anything you can do, the fact they're like, if I can do anything, but it be helpful to you is always just a nice sign that you're thoughtful, you're grateful, and you want to pay it forward. And then when you're in a position to pay it forward as much as you can.
That is such phenomenal advice. I think so often people think of like, okay, I'm supposed to network. So they reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say, hey, can I
Grab a
have a
coffee?
call with you? Yeah, grab a coffee and hear about your story. It is always exactly what you said. And what that basically means, how that person is receiving it is, can I take up your time so you can share your insights with me?
Yep.
And it feels so like self focused. It is such a different energy than when you approach it of, we can kind of like connect with each other and like scratch each other's backs. Like, I want to help you any way that I can as well. Like, it's so reciprocal instead of this, like, hey, busy person, can I take your time from you?
Yeah, and I think that when you are approaching those busy people, everything you wanna know from them has been talked about on a podcast like this or written about or
Right.
shared somewhere, and so you truly are wasting their time because you can hear it all. Find out where that person is speaking. If they
Mm.
have a book, show up to their book launch or show up to, like, their Forbes event or, and then meet them in person, take a picture of them, thank them for the insights they gave you on A, B, C, and D and how you learned from that. And this is where I'm at right now. What is the one thing I should do to get to the next level? Not like, what do you think I should do to get ahead? Like, if there's too much generalness out there with people wanting advice, don't ask for help, ask for what you need. But you better be studied on the person you're asking, so you're not asking these generalized questions.
So, like, if someone wanted to connect with you
Yeah.
and they wanted to initiate conversation rather than saying, hey, Rebecca, I'd love to take you to coffee and hear about your story. What is a more effective way to network with you? And I'm not trying to encourage anyone listening to like be DMing you. So don't do that. But I'm using you as an example for anyone listening of how they reach out to those people that they do want to be in touch with.
I would say, again, do all the research on the everywhere I've talked, right? I would say show a sign of support for that person somehow. Like, I gave you a nice review on that podcast you did, or I bought your book that I listened to. And then as you slide into the DMs or wherever you're going to approach them, or if you're coming up to them after they speak at an event, it's sort of like, thank you so much for your insights here. Would you be able, let's just say a woman needs to, I don't know, find a factory. Can you give me one recommendation for a factory in Manhattan that still makes bags? Or should I go direct to consumer or wholesale for my business? It is such an easy thing for me to answer. I probably answered it already somewhere else. But like after you've done all the research, what's the answer you're still seeking? Because I might have already given it to you somewhere else. And so when you scrub through all of that, usually also the person like on my end will be like, oh, they actually did their research and now they're asking a question they can't find anywhere else.
And then it also is easier for you to come back, here's the answer, instead of, can I hear your life story? Who
I
has the
won't do those
time?
anymore. Also, like as part of Female Founder Collective, we have a platform for mentorship where the woman is getting paid. And so, I tell people all the time, like, will you mentor me? I'm like, book me here. It can't just be this sort of, I'm not going to work hard and look for the answers. And you should take that time to tell me, like, suck everything you can. What do you still not need to know that's going to make a difference in your next step?
It shows such a difference of respect. And like when you respect someone's time, that is the most important thing.
And usually I can clock it and I'm like, oh, yeah, you get my email now because you did the work, you did the research.
That's a really good advice to know what you actually need from them instead of just trying to do this like blanket connection. That's really good advice. I love fashion, but this is a big secret to admit. I have traditionally hated shopping. I mean, the god awful dressing room lighting, never knowing what pant size I actually am, like shopping can wreck your self esteem. Building your best self wardrobe should be stress free and enjoyable. And honestly, call me crazy, but shopping should be fun, not a terrible chore that will hurt your confidence. Like, is that too much to ask? That's why I swear by Nordstrom. The experience that I have shopping at Nordstrom versus other stores is day and night. Like over the years, Nordstrom has become the only place that I want to shop. The first memory I have falling in love with clothes and really getting to know my personal style, if you could call it that, was as a kid going back to school shopping at Nordstrom with my mom. I would pick out like a pair of pink striped acid wash denim jeans from the kids section to wear to sixth grade, and I felt like I was the hottest thing that has ever walked the earth. Nordstrom was also where I went to buy my first, quote, adult purse after I got my first paycheck. And 10 lifetimes ago, when I was the fashion features manager at the Every Girl, I would style all of our photo shoots from Nordstrom because of how convenient and easy it is. I'm telling you, Nordstrom is my longest relationship. And here's why. The experience is so enjoyable because Nordstrom makes it easy. You get free shipping, which is a lifesaver, and they have the easiest return process I've ever experienced, making shopping online a no-brainer. So goodbye unflattering dressing room lighting. And here's the last little pro tip for shoppers that I will leave you with. I feel like I should gatekeep this because no one's talking about this, but I would never do that to you. You can book an appointment with a stylist for free, and their experts will create looks to match your style and budget. Like literally, why shop anywhere else besides Nordstrom? So you have this incredible brand. You also started Females Founders Collective. You are so incredibly successful. At this point of your life, what made you want to join Real Housewives of New York? I feel like that's like the $1,000,000 question everyone wants to know.
Blind stupidity. No. I was looking at a lot of things. I talked about this in one of the unseen footage. My business shrank by 70% during COVID.
As many did, yeah.
As many did. We almost didn't make it. And I was sort of looking for what is a way to continue. Like we've been rebuilding for the last 5 years. But for us, we weren't out of COVID in 2020. We were out of like the insanity probably end of 2022. We were still being impacted by things. So to me, I said, okay, what is a vehicle that could help with the momentum? What is my customer watching? We've always been known for being really close and connected to our customer, the first to talk to her online. I'm like this with my customer. So to me, knowing my consumer was watching the show, could I get closer to her by being on a show? And also what was pitched to me was not what we all got. What was
Really?
pitched to me was this is 8 self-made women, like no one's on daddy's money. and, showing New York, that lifestyle, fun and funny, a little bit of drama. Going in, I said, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I'm not going to start a petty fight. I'm going to just be me, even though that's not what you got. I'm going to just be me. And if you don't want that, guys, that's fine. I'll pick another lane of interest. And they said, no, 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 that's great. That's great. That's great. We want you to be the voice of reason. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Sign me up. So, I went into it with like these rose colored glasses. And then I quickly saw that, like, oh, I don't know that they know how to make a format of what we were just pitched. And so it's going to devolve back into what the franchise is known for.
And when you say they, do you mean like from the behind the scenes production side, or do you mean like your cast?
I think both. It didn't feel very quickly early on that anyone was going for the goal and the idea of what I thought we were all going for. I don't want to speak for Raquel. I don't think she thought that either. She's an incredibly talented, very legitimate, classy woman in the art world. I don't think she came on to get messy either.
As a fan of Real Housewives, we all kind of feel that too, where we're like, it would be so freaking cool to see the behind the scenes of your work. That part of your life would be really compelling. Like, I would have loved to see more about your work life, Raquel's work life, and seeing these like phenomenal women in this really cool lifestyle. We just didn't need the drama. Like, as the viewer, we just didn't need it. Do you think that it's kind of like the trying to compete with these other franchises that are very much rooted in the drama? Like, you look at a different Real Housewives and it's just like drama 24/7, and like that's where it was. This is what we know to be successful. Or how did it become what you were not pitched?
My husband is a director, and so he was able to sort of get me to see that, like, there are different reasons why different production companies, different executive producers are brought onto projects, and you have to have the right mindset going in for that to be achieved. And I don't know that this team, and again, I'm not on that side, knew how to do that. I think there's a comfort level with what's familiar. And so it would just evolved into like, oh, this is the formula, right? You got this sense every time we were filming that if you knew they weren't capturing the sexy, fun, New York City, whatever, it was like, something has to happen. And there was like this, like, oh no, if something doesn't happen, we know like daddy and mommy are going to be mad at us today. Not that there isn't daddy and mommy and they don't get mad, but it was that feeling. And then I was like, oh, who's taking one for the team today? That was kind of how it felt in my head. That was my inner monologue. Who's taking one for the team and who's the one going to get like attacked and slaughtered? And like, I would have these like, oh, I'm safe today. It was like Squid Game. That's what it was like. It was like
It is like Squid Games.
So I just think you have to have the right people going in if you want to create something entirely different. And the sad part is there was stuff with my business. There was stuff with my family. There was incredible stuff shot with Female Founder Collective. There was an incredible event that Uba did with like incredible, iconic fashion people and myself. All of it is there for that show to happen. And I know with each one of these women, what they gave, that show could have happened. I just don't know that that is what's thought. Like, I know now from fans, they do want that, not just from me, but from that show.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different show, but I think women do want that. And I think that there's enough inherent drama in all of our lives that could be showcased, real drama. The struggle of a mom who loves to work but has guilt endlessly, me, missing some key moments of my kids' lives. My husband being handicapped for 6 months because he critically injured himself the week before we shot, and me losing my 50% partner in many ways because he couldn't move, right? Like, that's dramatic. Let's explore what that dynamic is like in a marriage when you're like, I know you didn't mean to hurt yourself, but fuck, that sucks for me.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. C'est la vie, I guess.
I'm so with you. Like, that would have been so much more compelling to learn about. And like, when the housewives, the cast are opening up about their real life, those are the most compelling parts. When Raquel's sharing about her relationship with her mother and her engagement, like, those are the parts that viewers really relate to more than someone's mad at someone else because they said something stupid that, like, they don't actually care about. It just seems like this petty, stupid drama. That is the interesting stuff. So it is disappointing because I would have loved to see all the behind the scenes of your life in that way. When you say that you feel like you weren't presented as your true self,
Yeah.
was it more of just that the audience didn't get to see the scope of what your life actually looks like? Or was there any ways that you feel you were misrepresented or misunderstood?
I think that they whittled me down to the girl that didn't talk and that said random stuff like, "Does this headband make my nose look big?" Which I was fine to include that, but I think they did that montage that started off with Bryn saying, "I'm so boring," and then it cut to, like, all the weird, funny, odd stuff I said at the birthday party, you know? And I was like, "Cool, I see where this is gonna be great." I was vocal, I spoke, I said my opinion, I confronted people when needed, and I was like, "Oh, wow, you really worked hard to, like, turn me into this, like, someone that's not me." That was really, really crazy to watch.
It seemed like certain people, Bryn mostly, were, like, trying to break you because
Yeah.
they wanted it to be like Rebecca Minkoff becomes, like, a drama queen on camera, and I love the fact that you never gave them that. Like, I love the fact that you're like, "You can call me boring Becky all you want. It's not gonna make me become this person that you are trying to get me to be for what you think is gonna be good ratings or views or good drama or whatever." And I actually loved watching that, but it made me feel so mad for you because 'cause I'm like, "I wanna, like, strangle these people. They're being so awful for you not doing anything." Like, I don't know how you survived that because watching it, I wanted to pull out my hair for you.
Okay, so a couple things. I have a very, very, very what's the word? Losing my patience, it takes me a lot longer to lose it because I've had very real, very awful people do horrific, to be single white females in my own company is so much worse than Bryn making fun of what I'm wearing or making fun of thank you for all the free advertising, Nordstrom Rack. And so to me in that moment, I was like, "Oh, she's so uneducated in business. I'm not gonna waste my time telling her how business works." And after a while, someone who worked there, that he was like, "You're Rebecca fucking Minkoff. Show us Rebecca fucking Minkoff." And I was like, "She's right here. I don't have to engage in this petty shit. I'm on energy preservation mode. This is so petty. I'm not going to give her life because this is what she wants." And while women in America think I'm not standing up for myself, this is the greatest form of like strength. And like, you think this is going to bother me? I'm not going to give you that satisfaction. It was like so inside. I'd be like, "Oh, you want me to react? Guess what I'm not going to do today?" And I think that obviously, you see it come to a small head, but I didn't need to flip a table. I didn't need to scream at her. I just to be like, "Stop being a bully," because that's what you're doing to all of us. You don't need to do it to get attention.
Yeah.
So I know that many women, including my daughter, thought I didn't stand up for myself. And I was like, can we just reframe what standing up for yourself means? Sometimes being strong and not engaging in stupid shit is the best. Not even revenge is not the right word, but like you are standing up for yourself, in a way, because you're just showing that person that those words don't have meaning and they don't have power over you. I think that I had to remind myself of that because I did want to be like, "Meh," but I was like, then she wins. Then she
Yeah.
wins. I'm not giving her that.
And honestly, I mean, I understand, especially like for your daughter, I'm sure she was so protective of you, but it to me looked like you were just so much, I got bigger fish to fry.
I
Like,
did. I
who is this
really
little,
did
like,
too.
yeah, petty drama? Like, what
Right.
do I care? Like, whatever. It did not read to me like you were not standing up for yourself. I think Sai said that at some point, like Rebecca's not saying. I did not get that at all. Like, I really didn't. I understood it as you were kind of like, I don't care. If she wants to make fun of me being at Nordstrom Rack, hello, like, that is an honor to have this business that I have built. Like you said, she clearly just doesn't understand business and that it didn't bother you and you protected your peace. Like, that's what we call a boundary, is that you're like, "This that person's doing is not going to affect me living my life."
Yeah, and I also think because I clocked that behavior right away, I was like, "Oh, this is not a relationship that I'm going to even give life to or attempt to be all in on." Would it have been different? And was it different when someone else made those comments? Yeah, and then that does hurt, and you're like, "Oh, thanks for that." But I think when you're already like, oh, danger, Will Robinson, I'm staying away from that kind of personality. I've been around that personality a lot. I think it also makes it easier because you're like, if I engage with that, that's how they thrive and that's what gives them life. And I refuse to like make that candle brighter.
You are a really amazing and much needed example of strength because we do have this idea that strength means being really outwardly like, you can't say that. How dare you? And really, that isn't always the strongest option at the end of the day. A lot of times, strength, what strength actually is you're trying to come at me, you're trying to hurt my feelings. And this can apply in career and friendships, whatever. And I am choosing to not let it affect me.
Mhm.
That to me is like the strongest possible option, and we don't get to see a lot of that
You
in
don't.
this Bravo universe.
No.
And you are such a much needed example of how to actually deal with situations, with drama, with friends, with career, whatever, with that strength. That is the real strength instead of just like I got the balls to stand up to you. That isn't always the real strength.
Yeah, and I get it. I get it. In the Bravo world, that is what's wanted. That's what's entertaining. That's what women, unfortunately or fortunately, want to see. I'm entertained by it too, Salt Lake City.
So good.
So I think it's in hindsight, that's part of this. And if you don't go in fully signing up for it, then it's not the right fit.
I know that you recently announced the decision to not come back. I personally am devastated, but I also am like, you can do other things. You don't need this. You can do better. How did this decision come about for you, and why did you decide that leaving the show was the right next step?
After watching again what I was diminished to, I was kind of looking at the risk reward ratio of like, do I sign up to do this again and hope that this time they show all that we filmed and celebrate like the accomplishments, the 20 years? Why bring me on if that's what you're going to turn me into? Was my thought. And I wasn't willing to experience that again. And I couldn't see the format of the show changing because that is the formula. And I don't want to demean women. I don't want to fight with women. I don't want to talk about gossip behind their back. And so if I know that it's very unlikely that I'm going to be the one to change a show format of a legacy thing, then it's not for me. The reunion was kind of like the nail in the coffin for that of like, yep, this format is not changing and I'm not here for it. And I wish everyone well, but like, that's just not for me.
The reunion was really confusing. Like, what was that like for you? Because for me, I'm like, why was this so weird? Like, I didn't understand that with you. I did not understand the reaction to you.
I call it housewife whack-a-mole. So it was like, I needed my thing to be like, bam, bam, bam. Like I couldn't even open my mouth and someone else would come at me for something else. That was crazy. I was just as in shock as you probably were watching it as like, wait a second, what year are we in? Are we in 2025?
Yeah.
Like
You're like, who,
every,
me?
everyone on this stage has been judged and discriminated against and doesn't like it. And now you're going to do that to me? Cool. That was really intense. And I think it was really uncomfortable and it was gross.
That is the exact feeling I got watching it, not only just with you, but like in a lot of the situations. This feels like icky, especially for the people that are not sitting on the couch the entire time, like the friends of cast that will come in, for it to be so like I didn't even know what people were talking about when they were coming at things with you. Like I had no idea.
It ironically wasn't most of the subject matter had nothing to do with like the show necessarily. And then some of the things happened like with Aaron's accusations way after we were done filming, but the timeline was twisted. And so what was accused didn't line up. So it was just like, oh my gosh, okay, I guess this is what it is. This is what you're going to try and at your last moment trying to claw your apple, what you're going to go for. I don't know. I remember very in my head saying, everything like, are you going to help me? No, you? Oh, okay, cool. Not you, like thankfully Uba tried, Jessel tried. And I was like, okay, real friends. Thank you.
Have you continued to sustain a relationship with Jessel and Uba?
Yeah, we talk all the time.
Good. What about anyone else? Have you talked to Aaron since?
We did speak, yes.
Good speak, or it was just like,
You know,
it felt like a closure conversation?
I wouldn't say there's been closure yet. I think there's a lot to come back from. with what was thrown at me.
Yeah.
That's just not like, oh, one conversation and everything's rosy. But I was just out last night at an event. Sai was right across from me, so we exchanged pleasantries. But
So it feels very civil with
it's
everyone
civil.
else,
Yeah, yeah.
but
And again, if you didn't see me like go crazy on TV, you're not gonna like see me out being like, I'm not gonna talk to you. I'm a
right.
big girl. Like, I don't have to be your best friend anymore or hang out with you or talk to you. But like, yeah, we can be civil. What's new with you? How are the kids?
Yeah. When you like are removed from the camera setting, from like the Bravo of it all, then it just becomes like women that may not be like the best friends in real life, but you can just have that relationship where you see people out. Like the Bravo of it all doesn't show up when you're at like an event in New York that you see someone. It's not like the drama that I think people might expect seeing the show play out kind of in other circumstances.
When we were shooting the show, when it was airing, even after it aired, when you see one of them, at least how I experienced at an event, at that moment, I think pre-reunion, pretty good with everybody, clearly like not Bryn. But Anana, I was even bad with her. I think you're finding each other, you're huddling, you're like, can you believe this happened? Can you blah, 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 blah. You're almost trauma bonded, is what I'll say. And then, the one or two times I did see Bryn at an event, we did speak. We had differing opinions on reality and what happened and what didn't happen. But I wasn't gonna just be like, cause a scene. And she knew not to cause a scene. I think you're just like, we don't need people or rumors to be any worse. So you're either trauma bonding or you're just like civil and like, nice to see you. Hope all's well.
I think there's like a big question of, is it the same dynamic if cameras are on or off? What I've heard from other of the franchises that it's real drama, but you might just like say more what most of us just think in our head. So it's like what you actually feel, but people are just saying it out loud more. So there's a lot of that question of when we see a scene blow up at a party that so and so is shouting at each other, would that actually happen in real life if the cameras weren't there? Or would it be like most of us have, which is this girl's annoying me, but I'm gonna like think it in my head and not cause a problem. So that sounds like what it is if you guys were to run in. Like if you were to see Bryn, it would not be maybe what we would see on TV of like this big blow up. It would just be this like pleasantries are exchanged.
Yes and no. I think, at one of the events, she and I we were heated, but we weren't fighting. And we were talking about a difference of opinion on something without cameras on, but in front of a friend of mine. She was definitely trying to get me to react again. My friend was like,
That's
"I can't
interesting.
believe you didn't react again." And she's watched the show. And I was like, I'm telling you, that's not how you deal with this person. So I would say that's an outlier. The rest of us weren't really fighting. Me with the other cast was not fighting on or off camera.
That's interesting because I know especially with Bryn, especially the season, she's gotten a lot of like you're producing. So that's interesting to know when cameras aren't there that she kind of is the same like I'm trying to get a little something out of you that we see on TV.
And that might have been just me because whatever I trigger in her seems to want her to do that.
What do you wish that everyone from Bravo, like if you could leave the viewers with something, the fans of you that were excited to see you in this capacity, which by the way, I also have to say, I know we're focusing on a lot of the bad, but there were so many really amazing moments that we got to see of you this season. But what would you want to leave as kind of like your lasting impression? And maybe we can expand this beyond Bravo, beyond the show, looking at your phenomenal career, Female Founders Collective, everything that you've done. What do you hope your legacy is?
You can never just look at one vehicle of someone and assume that's who they are. Really get a well-rounded view if they are, let's just say, a personality or a well-known figure of like, I listened to them on the podcast and I read their book, then I went and see the work they did. So you're getting a full picture, not this edited, narrow view that fits a narrative. And then judge. That's what I'd say on the Bravo side. On the legacy side, I am deeply passionate about women's success, about us somehow, if we're the 51% biggest household spenders, like why don't we have more of our own wealth creation through our businesses? And I'm already seeing it with my daughter, and not to sound like altruistic, but I really want this next generation where it's not even in their minds that they're not equal. Like I see it with my daughter. She has no idea of what we talk about, if it's not equal. She doesn't experience that. And it's not just
Wow.
her whole set of friends. I think that's the generation where it's just not going to be a set of issues that they have to deal with. I'm hoping.
I hope so. Like what we're working towards is not even just that there's more women in boardrooms, more equality for women, but so that future generations don't even know that that inequality existed.
Yeah, and you can already see the change. If I look at some of my former CEOs and presidents who were probably 20 years my senior, when you look at how far we've even come, even though sometimes it doesn't feel that way from what they dealt with, you're like, oh, in 20 years, that can actually happen.
Yeah. Yes. It's like so much more motivating when we're like, that's what we're working toward. Okay, Rebecca, I would keep you all day if I could, but we are going to wrap up with some rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
First one, your favorite Bravo housewife of all time.
Oh my God, I was just talking about this yesterday. It's really hard because I love Lisa Barlow, but I love Bronwyn because she just like went in and didn't give a fuck. But I love Bose. She's been my friend before this.
Really? You know Bose? I am obsessed with Bose.
Obsessed. I thought I was going to have the experience she's having.
You deserved it, Rebecca. You deserved it.
Oh well. But I think that probably those three, but then I just have to add a little asterisk for Brittany because she's just so unhinged that I fell in love with her.
She's amazing television.
Amazing. Like sitting
I know.
backstage with her beer, like I should be out there cheersing her. Why aren't they including me? Like, can you imagine if I would have done that?
No, it's so good. Salt Lake is like, I mean, they're like a league of their own, truly.
Oh my God. But I will say, I'm on season 1 because I didn't watch the first 5 seasons. I would not continue watching based on how bored I am with season 1 to get to season 6. So I will say that as much shit as the Roni reboot got and how boring we are, season 1 of Salt Lake is really, I think, terrible and annoying.
I agree. I feel like most franchises, the first season, maybe even the second,
Yeah.
is not great. Like
No.
you really do have to like give the cast time to like marinate and find their groove. I totally agree. It's
Yeah.
happened every single time. So for sure. I have hopes for Real Housewives of New York. Okay. Well, we'll see what comes of it, but I have hopes. Okay, your
We'll wait and see.
go-to coffee order.
So I usually drink an Americano. I get it black, and then I have this monk fruit sweetened chocolate powder by Lakanto that I throw in there, and it's like you don't get the sugar, and you get this chocolatey mocha feeling. And for me, I don't drink cream anymore because of it, which has been nice.
Oh my God, that sounds so good. I have to try that. Okay, fill in the blank. If everyone had this one habit, it would change their life.
Find your golden ratio,
Ooh.
like we talked about earlier.
I love it. Best piece of advice you ever received?
I interviewed on my podcast a woman named Kristen Olszewski from Nomatica Wines, and she said, only take advice from women whose lives you want.
That is so important. That like reframes everything.
It reframes everything. It reframes everyone in the comment section because
Yeah.
you know what I do? I don't read them all because I don't have time, frankly. But when I do, when I'm like, let's see what the trolls are trolling today. And then I click on that person's profile, it's like, oh, don't want her life, not going to listen, block and delete. And even a shitty article or a shitty comment from someone, it makes it that reframing for me reframes. Do I get upset or bummed, or do I just be like, well, don't want her life, not listen to that?
Yes. I've also heard of something like criticism is only helpful if it's advice. So, like, again, if you wouldn't want to take advice from this person, like, then that's trolling. That's not actually like anything that you should pay attention to.
Exactly.
I love that. Last question for you, Rebecca. A book that changed your life.
I would say on the business side of things, Shoe Dog was an incredible book by Phil Knight. It's the story of Nike. And you just read what he experienced and now what the brand is today. It's a miracle it even exists. And I feel that way about my company sometimes. It's a miracle we're still here. On just the fiction side, you know, The History of Love is a really beautiful book that if you have the time to get swept away in something. And then Glennon Doyle's book, I'm blanking on the name, but the first book.
Not Untamed. Untamed, or what's the other one? Love Warrior.
I think it was
I
Untamed.
love Glennon Doyle.
I love
Okay, Untamed is so
and I'm
good.
not like a poetry person, but I was like, give me the poetry, Glennon.
Glennon can do no wrong.
No wrong.
Rebecca, thank you so much. Where can
Thank
everybody find you, get your podcast, your book, everything you have going on? Obviously, shop Rebecca Minkoff, everything.
You can listen to my podcast. I don't know why I can't talk anymore today. It's called Superwomen with Rebecca Minkoff. I get to interview incredible CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs. You get to hear a lot of the unvarnished truths that are in my book because I want women to know how hard this can be, this path, and how to recover from it. You can follow me at Rebecca Minkoff, at Becky Minkoff. You can buy my book Fearless on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Target, wherever books are sold.
And I'm sure everyone listening knows where to shop Rebecca Minkoff.
I don't know where to shop
Everybody knows.
Rebecca Minkoff.
Rebecca, thank you so much. This was so amazing.
Thanks for having me on.
Your closet should be your happy place, and your clothes should be a tool to help you feel more confident. If your wardrobe needs a spring refresh this year like mine does, Nordstrom has everything you need under $100 with all the convenience that makes shopping easy. Thank you for listening to this segment brought to you in partnership with Nordstrom and Acast Creative. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I know I sure did. Please do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really makes a huge difference for our show so we can keep growing and bringing the content that you love. If you want more info, you can find us at The Every Girl Podcast on Instagram or theeverygirlpodcast.com. Talk to you next week.